a continent has now defined ourselves.
Hello and welcome to TOS TV, your digital-first Pan-African network. I am Adesuwa Osuyi and this is TOS News Track. Reacting to the latest report from Transparency International, which shows Nigeria to be the most corrupt country in Africa, the West African Giant's president has said that President Muhammadu Buhari deserves credit for diminishing corruption in the public service. Presidential spokesman Garba Shehu, in a statement Thursday night, assured that Buhari will continue to support anti-corruption agencies. Shehu condemned the latest Transparency International report on Corruption Perception Index in Nigeria. The presidency declared it was not an accurate portrayal of the facts on ground. The Buhari administration said the Technical Unit on the Governance Research, TUGAR, will provide more detailed information on the sources of the TI data. The statement said the government was aware of the characters behind the body's verdict, adding that their opposition is not heeding. The presidency dared the watchdog to come clean and desist from further rehasing of old tales. Shehu pointed out that 1.2 trillion was recovered by EFCC between 2009 and 2019. The aid further cited preventive instruments deployed by the Buhari administration. IT listed the Treasury Single Account TSA Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System coverage expansion and the removal of 54,000 ghost workers from federal civil service. Saving 200 billion annually, the presidency advised Nigerians to stand with the APC administration that has done so much on asset recovery, prosecution, legislation and shown will in the fight against corruption. Meanwhile, President Buhari arrived Katsina State to attend the ongoing All Progressive Congress membership registration in his hometown, Daura. The Director General on Media to the Katsina State Governor, Alhaji Abdul Labaran, confirmed this to the media on Friday. The presidential jet conveying the president and his aide touched down at the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua International Airport at about 4:55 p.m., with most reporters not allowed access by the security officers to the airport runway. On arrival, the president was received by the Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari in company of his Deputy Speaker of the State House of Assembly and other senior government officials, as well as heads of security agencies in the state. This visit marks exactly 49 days since his last visit in December 2020, where over 300 school children of the Kankara Science Secondary School in the state were abducted. Governor of Nigeria's North Central state of Kogi, Yahaya Bello, has accepted to run the 2023 presidential race, but on certain conditions. Bello responded to the 14-day ultimatum issued to him by a coalition of youth support group under the umbrella of Governor Yahaya Bello to President Yahaya Bello, be GYB to PYP. Bello personally handed over his response letter to the Director General of the group, Ambassador Oladele John Nihi, on Friday. He said his acceptance to run the presidential race would depend on the ability of the group and several others to mobilize Nigerian youths to join the All Progressive Congress (APC) ahead of the election. The Director General of Governor Yahaya Bello to President Yahaya Bello B Youth Support Group disclosed Bello's response at a news conference on Friday in Abuja. Bello is the chairman of the APC Women and Youth and Persons with Disabilities Sensitization and Mobilization Committee on its national membership registration and revalidation exercise. Niyi said the conference was to share some thoughts on the ultimatum the group gave Bello and his response on other matters of mutual concern. He added that Bello charged the group to triple APC membership base across the country ahead of the 2023 general election by mobilizing Nigerian youths, women and persons living with disabilities to register as its members. Niyi said Bello, through the group, was calling on all other youth groups across the country to join hands with him and his committee to bring more members into the APC fold. He appreciated the governor's response and assured that the group would embark on the mobilization and sensitization of Nigerian youths to register as APC members in the actualization of the project. The Director General expressed optimism that Governor Bello and his team will make the desired difference that will boost the party's membership base. According to him, Nigeria needed a young, dynamic, forward-looking and experienced leader like Bello in 2023 to tackle the challenges confronting the country. Nigeria has recorded 27 new deaths from the coronavirus, even as the country recorded 1,114 fresh infections on Friday. This was disclosed in the report published by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) in the early hours of Saturday. The new cases were recorded in 21 states and the Federal Capital Territory, with Lagos still leading with 408 new infections. The FCT had 95 cases, Plateau 90, Ondo 66, Kaduna 63, Oyo 56, Borno 46, Imo 42, Edo 41, Ogun 37, Rivers 31, Ekiti 25, Yobe 20, Kano 18, Akwa Ibom 18, Delta 15, Osun 15, Kwara 11, Bayelsa 6, Nasarawa 6, Zamfara and Bauchi 1. 102,780 are also said to have recovered, while the death toll now stands at 1,577. As the virus surges on and calls for more testing intensify, the country is also looking to secure vaccines as soon as possible. As of Thursday, the Minister of Health, Osage Ehanire, said Nigeria had secured an additional 41 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. However, the delivery date for the vaccines remains unknown, as manufacturers struggle to meet global demand in time. The 41 million doses were secured as part of efforts by an African Union task team to help countries on the continent gain equitable access to vaccines. Also, Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said Thursday that conscious efforts have to be made to ensure that vaccines get to everyone. Shortly after receiving his first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in New York City, Guterres said the world must come together if progress is to be made. Globally, at least 2,191,865 people have died from the virus since the outbreak emerged in China in December 2019. According to an AFP tally from official sources, more than 101,436,360 cases have been registered. The U.S. remains the country that has suffered the highest toll with 433,206 deaths, followed by Brazil with 221,547 deaths, and Mexico with 155,145 deaths. The number of deaths globally is, however, said to be underestimated, as the toll is calculated from daily figures published by national health authorities and does not include later revisions by statistics agencies. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You are watching TOS News Track. Still ahead, international stories. Do stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. It's still TOS News Track, tracking more COVID-19 stories internationally, and we start from Kenya, where the East African country's coronavirus vaccine rollout will begin next month, with 1.25 million frontline workers to receive injections between February and June. Kenya's Chief Administrative Secretary for Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, has said the program will be divided into 3 phases, with the first giving priority to healthcare workers, security and immigration officers. She explained that so far, Kenya, with a population of 48.5 million, was expecting to get 24 million doses via the World Health Organization-backed COVAX scheme. There will be a mix of vaccines currently being used, such as the AstraZeneca, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. It is thought that 60% of inhabitants need to be immunized to achieve herd immunity. The announcement comes amidst an increase in cases being reported in the East African nation. Staying with more COVID-19 stories, Zimbabwe's coronavirus lockdown has been extended by another 2 weeks until 15th February. Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, who is acting health minister, made the announcement on national television. A 30-day level 4 lockdown began on 5th January following a surge in infection over the festive season. Only essential services, including hospitals, pharmacies, and supermarkets, are being allowed to operate. Restrictions include a stay-at-home order, a curfew, and a ban on the sale of alcohol. Reports say the virus has overwhelmed Zimbabwe's chronically underfunded health system. Last week, 2 cabinet members died after contracting coronavirus. A prominent scientist has expressed deep concern that a new vaccine only worked on half of those patients who received it in a trial in South Africa. The Novavax vaccine had nearly 90% success rate in the UK, but only 49.4% efficacy in a smaller test in South Africa. Professor Salim Abdul Karim, who heads South Africa's coronavirus advisory panel, warned some countries could get left behind in terms of the vaccine rollout. The virus in South Africa has mutated in a way that appears to make it significantly more resistant to some current vaccines. In the latest trial, the Novavax vaccine proved effective in only 49.4% of cases overall. It was 60% effective among those without HIV, but more than 20% of South Africans are HIV positive. Although some scientists have praised these figures, Professor Karim said the success rate was deeply concerning. Vaccines can and will be tweaked to make them more effective against mutations of COVID-19. But Professor Karim, the most authoritative voice on the pandemic in South Africa, warned that more mutations were inevitable and the scientific community needed to work harder to get ahead of the virus. There are already concerns that poorer countries will not get vaccines fast enough. Professor Karim said there was now an additional risk that richer nations will be able to achieve some level of herd immunity through vaccines, while other parts of the world were left far more exposed to new mutations. Away from COVID-19 to other health-related stories, now where sexual and reproductive health advocates in Africa have welcomed the news that U.S. President Joe Biden has reversed a ban on federal funds going to international aid groups that perform or inform about abortions. Some sexual health clinics in Africa were forced to close after 2017 when U.S. President Donald Trump cut funding to organizations that provide contraception and safe abortion services. Nelly Munyasia, head of Reproductive Health Network Kenya, said that what was known as the global gag rule had made it difficult for her organization to offer help to women in the last few years. Moses Mulumba from the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development in Uganda said that the gag rule demonstrated the consequences of repressive political decisions from other countries and how they affected populations in low and middle income countries. Its repeal will mean more women can get essential reproductive health care, including contraceptives, but also HIV and cancer screening and other life-saving services. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You are watching TOS News Track. Still ahead, more international stories. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, and now to more stories we are tracking on the international scene. Protests have been taking place in Polish cities for the third night in a row, following the introduction, of a near-total ban on abortion. Abortion is now allowed only in cases of rape or incest or when the pregnancy threatens the life of the mother. An October ruling by the Constitutional Court found that a 1993 law allowing abortion in cases of severe and irreversible fetal abnormalities was unconstitutional in 2019. 98% of abortions were carried out on those grounds, meaning that the ruling effectively banned the vast majority of pregnancy terminations. The ruling provoked outrage from supporters of the right to abortion, fueling protests that morphed into more general anti-government demonstrations. Demonstrators have defied coronavirus restrictions and freezing temperatures to protest after the judgment was enforced on Wednesday. The majority of polls opposed a stricter ban on abortion. Reports from the capital say protesters in Warsaw marched through the streets chanting freedom, equality, abortion on demand. Many carried banners with slogans including "My government is killing me," "My body, my choice," and "The revolution has a uterus." Poland's conservative government, which has strong ties to the country's powerful Catholic Church supports the ruling. The court justified its ruling on the grounds that an unborn child is a human being and therefore it deserves protection under Poland's constitution, which ensures the right to life. There is anger over the way the ruling has been introduced without a public or parliamentary debate and by a group of judges who are widely seen as loyal to the government. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation has won Sweden's Olof Palme Human Rights Prize for 2020. Organizers said the movement was honored for promoting peaceful civil disobedience against police brutality and the racial violence across the globe. They noted that about 20 million people had taken part in Black Lives Matter BLM protests in the U.S. alone, along with millions more around the world. Founded in the U.S. in 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement became an international slogan last year, following several high-profile cases of police brutality against African Americans. Protests that followed the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others saw chapters of Black Lives Matter spread across the U.S. and around the world. An online prize-giving ceremony is due to take place in Stockholm on Saturday. The $100,000 annual prize commemorates Olof Palme, the Swedish Prime Minister and prominent human rights advocate who was assassinated in Stockholm in 1986. A Norwegian MP, Peter Eide, has nominated the Black Lives Movement Foundation for this year's Nobel Peace Prize. In his nomination papers, Eide said the movement had become an important worldwide movement to fight racial injustice. Talks between the new U.S.-Iran envoy, British, French and German officials held on Thursday as the United States explores how to revive the 2015 nuclear deal former U.S. President Donald Trump abandoned. Two sources familiar with the matter said on Friday the discussion took place but offered no details. The State Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The nuclear deal, formerly called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA), was struck by Iran and 6 major powers and committed Iran to restricting its nuclear program in return for sanctions relief from the United States and others. U.S. President Joe Biden has said if Tehran returns to the pact, Washington will do so as well and would then seek to build a broader pact to also deal with Iran's development of ballistic missiles and support for proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, Yemen and elsewhere. Trump abandoned the deal in 2018 and revived U.S. sanctions. Iran in 2019 began violating the deal, including by enriching larger quantities of uranium to higher levels of purity. The Biden administration has insisted Iran resume complying before it would. Tehran argues that Washington abandoned the agreement and should return before Iran does. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has said the time it will take Iran to make enough fissile material for a single nuclear weapon has fallen to 3 or 4 months from over a year under the deal. The talks with the British, French and German officials are likely only the first step in consultation that will ultimately bring in China and Russia, the other major powers in the pact, and eventually Iran itself. French President Emmanuel Macron was quoted on Friday as saying any new negotiations will be very strict and should include Saudi Arabia, Iran's regional adversary. U.S. lawmakers announced Friday that Brian Sicknick, the U.S. Capitol police officer who died from injuries sustained in the January 6 pro-Trump riot, will lie in honor in the building's rotunda. Sicknick, who served in the New Jersey Air National Guard before joining the Capitol Police in 2008, was injured while physically engaging with protesters and returned to his division office, where he collapsed. Capitol Police said in a previous statement. He was taken to hospital where he died about 9:30 p.m. on January 7. He was 42 years old. A ceremonial arrival will take place on February 2 at 9:30 p.m. on the east front of the Capitol, the lawmakers announced. A viewing will start shortly after and continue overnight. Members of Congress are invited to attend the viewing the next morning, which will be allowed by a tribute from lawmakers. Sicknick will then be buried at Arlington National Cemetery. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You are watching TOS News Track. Still ahead, business and sports. Do stay tuned. In business, Airtel Africa plc, an Anglo-Indian provider of telecommunication and mobile money services company, reported a pre-tax profit of $482 million in the 9-month period of 2020 compared to $501 million recorded in the corresponding period of 2019, a 3.8% decline. Airtel Africa plc recorded a marginal decline in its pre-tax profits in the period under consideration. 2020, $9 million. The company recorded increased revenue from its 4 generating units: voice, data, mobile money, and other revenues. Despite increased revenues, the company's pre-tax profits dipped. Cursory checks indicate that increased expenses and increased finance costs contributed to the decline in pre-tax profits. And now to sports, where according to latest reports, embattled Confederation of African Football (CAF) President Ahmad has been reinstated by the Court of Arbitration for Sport (CAS) following a ruling on Friday. In November 2020, Ahmad was banned by FIFA for 5 years after the football's world governing body found him to have breached several of his ethics code. The Malagasy, however, appealed his decision at CAS, which issued a preliminary ruling on Friday. Despite his reinstatement, Ahmad is still ineligible to contest CAF's presidential elections in March. However, since the CAS decision came after both the CAF's Governance Committee and FIFA's Review Committee met earlier this week to discuss the eligibility of candidates. Since he was banned when FIFA met on Tuesday and CAF on Thursday, Ahmad was deemed ineligible to run. With CAF presidential elections set on March 12, the fate of the troubled president will only be decided by CAS when his appeal will be heard in full on 2nd March before a final decision. Nigeria's international junior Ajayi and the reigning club champions of Africa, Al Ahly, arrived in Qatar on Friday night ahead of the 17th edition of the FIFA Club World Cup. Egyptian giant Al Ahly SC meanwhile qualified for the tournament after winning the CAF Championship League for a record 9th time, thanks to a 2-1 victory over Zamalek SC. On arrival in Doha, players and officials from both clubs underwent COVID-19 testing before departing for their designated hotel. They will remain in a medical bubble throughout the tournament in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Al Ahly SC will enter the tournament at the 2nd round stage and will face Qatari champions Al Duhail SC at Education City Stadium on February kickoff 2030. Al Ahly SC will face UEFA Champions League winners FC Bayern Munich in the semi-finals if they beat Al Duhail SC. 6 teams will compete in this year's tournament. Al Duhail SC hosts country's representative FC Bayern Munich, UEFA, Tigres, CONCACAF, Al Ahly SC CAF, Ulsan Hyundai FC AFC, and S. Palmeiras or Santos FC. The Oceania Football Confederation OFC representative Auckland City FC withdrew from the competition in light of the COVID-19 quarantine measures required by New Zealand authorities. Victoria's Minister for Sport has announced that up to 30,000 fans a day will be allowed to attend the Australian Open. A daily crowd capacity of 30,000 will be permitted for the first 8 days of the tournaments, split equally between day and night sessions. It will then be reduced to 25,000 from the quarter-finals, half the average attendance of the previous years. The Australian Opens runs from 8th to 21st February in Melbourne. Players have started to leave hotel quarantine after completing their mandatory 14-day isolation period upon arrival in Australia. In early January, more than 1,700 players, staff and others tied to the first Grand Slam of the year were flown into the country on chartered flights. Most players were allowed out of their rooms for 5 hours a day to practice on court and exercise, but a smaller group of 72 players were fully confined to their rooms after coronavirus cases were discovered on their flights. Melbourne endured one of the world's longest lockdowns last year, and many locals have concerns about the potential COVID-19 risk posed by the tournament. And that is TOS News Track on your digital first Pan-African network. For more updates, visit www.tostvnetwork.com. Do follow and like TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and remember to subscribe on YouTube. TOS TV is also available on TSTV as TOS News on channel 138. Do stay with us and enjoy more programs on TOS TV Network. I am Adesuwa Osuyi. Bye for now.